Before we get started on that, however, we should first be introduced to what's called the Socratic teaching and learning method, because that's what's used herein now. And Socrates was a Greek philosopher. He lived from around 469 to 399 BC, and he was one of the most renowned teachers in the history of the world. Socrates thought it wasn't only important to teach content, but even more importantly, that we should all be taught how to think. And if we pause for a moment and think about that, one type of learning is content learning. That's a very important part of our learning process. It's where we gather facts and information and statistics and all of those sorts of things. But there's another kind of learning, and that's actually the thought process learning. And that's what Socrates stressed. He said it this way: I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. Later, Socrates added very wisely, to find yourself, think for yourself. The Socratic teaching method is, of course, named after Socrates, and it's based on his highly effective technique of using questions to stimulate the thought process and the development of ideas as you, the student, seek to come up with answers. A lot of people refer to it as the question-answer method. This exciting teaching method is used in the character portions of every lesson here in the Do It Right program. And these are some of the wonderful rewards and benefits provided for you by by the Socratic method. First, the Socratic method helps you develop insights and also promotes what is called critical thinking. And then secondly, it provides access to those very valuable teaching moments, those what we'd call sidebars or detours, where you actually leave the lesson plan behind and you go where your interest and your curiosity take you. You may be going along and they ask you a question, you think about it, reflect, but it stimulates you and you come up with another question, a related question on that, and you go off in another direction. You take a detour in the road. You don't have to stay on that straight and narrow, but you go off where your interest takes you. And the fact is that it's here on these sidebars and these detours where the indirect and most valuable learning actually takes place. And then third, the Socratic method is what's called participatory. And you, as the student, become involved, making the learning process relevant and enriched. And then that brings us to the fourth point, which is that the Socratic method also in that way provides or promotes active rather than passive learning for you, the student. So you are actually involved in creating the learning environment. You actually help to determine the lesson, the nature of the lesson, the nature of the learning. So it's active rather than passive. It's participatory. And then beyond that, the Socratic method also encourages you, the student, to not only answer questions, but to ask questions of not only your parent, teacher, but also of your peers. As I said a few moments ago, you are asked a question in the lesson, and that brings up sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4 questions in your mind. And again, with the Socratic method, you're encouraged to ask those questions and to go off and pursue the answers. And then the Socratic method teaches you to ask questions such as what, how, why, where, when, all of those things that are so important in our true and most valuable education.